Tonight, the outcry after a review finds the prison transfer of Paul Bernardo was a sound decision. Explaining the move of a notorious killer to medium security.
This inmate was assessed as moderate.
The response from grieving families and the political ripple effect. A helicopter pilot killed on the front lines of Canada's wildfire fight.
The crash site had been located.
Another devastating loss during an unprecedented season. And a Canadian family's frustrating search for a home.
We're talking like nearly $100,000 cash up front.
When even tenants with deep pockets are denied.
We've had to consider moving to Atlanta.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The move sparked outrage across the country, with some saying it should have never happened at all. But a review into the transfer of notorious killer Paul Bernardo to a medium security prison has found the decision followed the law. CTV's Heather Wright starts us off with the controversy and political fallout.
He's considered a sadistic psychopath, guilty of some of the most heinous crimes in Canadian history. But the decision to quietly transfer Paul Bernardo to a medium security prison was the right one, according to a review released today.
This inmate was assessed as moderate on institutional adjustment, moderate on escape risk, and high on the risk to the safety of the public.
The review says the Correctional Service of Canada could have had more proactive and meaningful discussions with victims' families about the transfer, but in the end found Bernardo had taken many steps over the years to integrate with fellow prisoners with no documented incidents or behavioral concerns. But the lawyer for the victim's family says a different criteria should have been used in this decision. Hallmarks of psychopathy are that the offender is cunning, deceptive, manipulative, Tim Danson says. They learn how to manipulate the system and the various tests being applied to them. In the 1990s, Paul Bernardo kidnapped, tortured, and murdered teenagers Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. He was designated a dangerous offender and given an indeterminate sentence with no end date. And while most of his sentence has been spent in solitary confinement, mostly for his safety, experts say once he showed he could integrate with other prisoners, the CSC was obligated to move him.
It would actually be deeply inappropriate for them to say, we'll follow our law and policy for 96% of the folks here, but when it comes to these handful, we'll just do what we like.
Still, the fallout from this transfer to La Macasa in Quebec continues. Initially, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino called the move shocking and incomprehensible, even though his office was notified months in advance, and again days before it happened. He says he never got the message.
If he didn't know, he's incompetent. If he did know, he's lying. Either way, he should resign.
In a statement, Mendicino says this review shows more must be done to ensure victims are at the forefront of these decisions, and I am determined to see that done. As part of this review, the CSC will launch a committee to improve how it engages with victims' families. It will also send out more formal notifications when it comes to high-risk offenders. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. Well, as Heather mentioned, the Public Safety Minister has been under fire over his handling of the Bernardo file. And today, the Prime Minister was directly asked if he still has confidence in Marco Mendicino. Here's how he answered.
I have an amazing team in Ottawa and an amazing group of MPs right across the country who are committed to serving their country every single day. And anyone in my cabinet, by definition, has my confidence.
Justin Trudeau was speaking in southeastern Ontario, where his tour was cut short after roughly 100 protesters surrounded him in Belleville, shouting expletives about the government and media. The union representing more than 7,000 BC port workers revealed late tonight the bargaining committee has reached a tentative agreement with the employer. The union has called an emergency meeting tomorrow to vote on whether to send that agreement to the membership for ratification. So far, the labor unrest is estimated to have cost the Canadian economy almost $11 billion. A tragic reminder tonight of the dangers faced by the brave men and women who have been battling Canada's record-breaking wildfires. A helicopter pilot in a remote part of northern Alberta has died. It's the third death in the past week of a person who put themselves at risk to save others from the flames. CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier reports.
This is the work Valhalla Helicopters is doing fighting wildfires in Alberta. Yesterday evening, one of the company's pilots was killed in a crash near Hague Lake. The 41-year-old man was battling the fires in the Peace River area.
On arrival, there were forestry members who were doing CPR. They did pull him from that crash site.
It's the latest in a tragic string of deaths this wildfire season. Last week, 19-year-old Devin Gale was killed near Revelstoke. Over the weekend, 25-year-old Adam Yeadon died in the Northwest Territories.
And to have lost 3 firefighters or individuals helping out in fighting the fires is heartbreaking.
We are doing everything we can to ensure that the damage, the loss of lives are kept to a minimum.
And the fight is still an active one, with 600 fires burning out of control across Canada, including this one threatening the community of Cranbrook, BC. Already a reported 7 homes have been lost from a nearby First Nation.
Obviously, very challenging fire. Started 2 days ago, I believe. Significant wind in that valley drove that fire.
And with this record-breaking wildfire season only about halfway through, the risk on the front line remains.
I think it's statistically and probability-wise, it's likely going to happen again, unfortunately. Hopefully it doesn't.
Still, crews are ready to take on that risk until communities are safe.
It kind of just made me more encouraged to be in the field because I want to be the best I can be to protect my family and my friends.
And Canada's fight is truly the world's fight. There are currently nearly 1,800 international firefighters here, from as close as the US to as far away as South Korea. And more will arrive in the coming days. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
In Greece, high winds near the capital have rekindled a major wildfire. Firefighters on foot and water bombers in the air are struggling to douse the fierce flames. Elsewhere in the country, fires have chewed up vast chunks of land, as rising temperatures as high as 45 degrees in the coming days could trigger new outbreaks. And parts of the U.S. are also getting slammed with extreme weather. New images of a powerful twister lasting more than half an hour in North Carolina reveal the extent of the devastation. The massive tornado was roughly 6 football fields wide.
Scared. All of us were scared.
This man was golfing when the tornado roared through and toppled trees in its path. Elsewhere, Phoenix, Arizona is on a record heat streak, more than 43 degrees Celsius for 21 days straight. And an ocean heat wave is slamming the Gulf Coast, endangering Florida's coral reefs. Back here in Canada, the high cost of living has made it challenging to find housing. Forget owning a home, even renting is difficult. In Toronto and Vancouver, a couple earning minimum wage full-time can't reasonably afford a 1-bedroom apartment, according to a new report. And as CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports, the crisis goes beyond the big cities, impacting families you might not expect.
You may be familiar with the phrase, if you build it, they will come. Canada's population is growing at a rate not seen since the baby boom of the 1950s. In June, the country surpassed 40 million people, driven mainly by immigration. Yet real estate experts believe we've forgotten an important piece of the equation.
Government really should have tried to solve how to build more homes first before wrapping up our population growth, because the side effect of that is skyrocketing home prices.
It's a reality the Ellison family have been facing for months.
Our offers have been very aggressive.
The family of 5 has rented the same house an hour north of Toronto for nearly a decade, but their landlord has family immigrating to Canada and now needs to move into the home.
So yeah, we've packed everything up.
Since late April, at least 5 of their offers have been rejected.
We put in an offer for $200 a month over their asking price and offered to pay for 2 full years upfront in rent.
2 full years. Like, we're talking like nearly $100,000 cash up front.
You've been offering 2 years cash in advance.
Declined it outright, like within hours.
Their rent is also poised to double to $4,000. Many landlords want tenants whose monthly salary is triple the rent each month. The Ellison family don't make quite that much. To put potential landlords at ease, a wealthy family member is co-signing their rental applications.
And we still can't get a home.
Landlords can just sit back and wait because they're getting multiple applications.
When it comes to affordability, who's really shouldering the weight of all of this?
The weight of this crisis, quite frankly, is felt by renters because they're seeing the rents surge and they're not benefiting the way homeowners are from rising home prices.
Here in this province, Premier Doug Ford wants to build 1.5 million homes by 2031. Developers and planners we've spoken with say what's really needed is a national housing strategy with a focus on affordability. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Aurora, Ontario.
Parents near Barrie, Ontario have more questions than answers tonight after police laid a series of disturbing charges against the owner of a summer camp for children with autism and her husband. As CTV's John Venavelli-Rao reports, the accusations come just days after a public warning about a convicted sex offender living at the camp.
Outside the home where the children's camp was located, parents gathered as they did earlier this week, expressing concern about the slew of charges now being faced by the owner and her husband.
My biggest concern now is for the women that reside in the house that are employees. I've dealt with them for a year and a half. They're phenomenal women.
Amber Maloney's business was aimed at helping kids on the autism spectrum. But on Monday, parents were shocked to learn her husband had years ago been convicted for charges related to the trafficking of minors. And while police say he was put on a sex offender registry, there were no conditions imposed on him to stay away from children under 16. So police put out a rare public safety advisory warning he was living at the home and had regular access to the camp. In an interview the next day in which he didn't want to be shown, Lauriston Maloney defended himself, admitting he used to run an escort business but said a girl had lied about her age.
I'm not a predator. I'm not somebody who targets children. It is ridiculous what the police are doing.
But now Maloney facing new charges, including 2 counts of assault, trafficking in a person, and forcible confinement, while his wife is also charged with trafficking, administering a noxious substance, and fraud over $5,000. Police say the victim was not a child who went to the day camp, though add their investigation is ongoing.
The crime focuses on exploiting human beings for someone else's personal gain or profit. Modern day slavery.
The Ontario government says the facility was unlicensed and it's been ordered to shut down. While some parents say more checks need to be put in place and think being put on an offender registry with no conditions is a mistake.
The justice system is failing us.
None of the allegations have been tested in court, while the accused are scheduled to appear before a bail hearing on Friday. John Venavelli-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Police in South Africa say one person was killed and at least 48 others injured in an explosion. Security video captured the powerful moment of the blast. Buses were lifted in the air and the road was ripped open. An underground gas explosion is the suspected cause. There's growing concern in Washington tonight over the fate of a U.S. soldier who ran into North Korea from the south on Tuesday.
We don't know his condition. We don't know where he's being held. We don't know the status of his health.
Pyongyang has provided no information on Army Private Travis King. U.S. authorities still don't know the reason for the 23-year-old's actions, but King had finished a prison sentence for assault, and they speculate he was likely worried about facing further disciplinary actions when he returned to the U.S. The focus of soccer fans around the world is on Australia and New Zealand. The Women's World Cup kicked off today with the 2 host nations both winning in front of record crowds. More than 42,000 people in Auckland were part of the biggest crowd ever at any soccer game in New Zealand, while more than 75,000 fans were in Sydney, the most ever for a women's match in Australia. CTV's Melanie Nagy is in Melbourne, where the Canadian fans have gathered to cheer on Team Canada.
Inside a Melbourne pub, Canada's colours can be spotted everywhere. From the bar tap to the blinking flag, Sherry Ansley brought with her from Niagara Falls. Along with her family, she's excited to cheer on Team Canada.
We're here to honor them the way they've honored us and be the biggest fans in the stadium.
The women not only admire the players, but love soccer.
What do you love about the game?
Everything. Everything. Also in the crowd, Kathy from Moncton, who just so happens to be left back Alicia Chapman's aunt.
Having a family member playing in the World Cup, absolutely incredible.
This is the 9th Women's World Cup, and with 32 teams competing, it's the biggest in the tournament's history. And at Canada's last public training session before their opening game against Nigeria, the women looked comfortable and confident. They also looked like they were having fun.
The thing that this team has is just so much talent.
Team captain Christine Sinclair firmly believes her squad can go far. But even after 5 World Cups, the soccer superstar still gets pre-game jitters.
I still get those nerves, those butterflies, that excitement, as I did, back in, was it 2003 in my first one.
Back at the pub, filled with supportive fans and family, 8-year-old Sasha Milliar isn't worried about Canada's chances.
They're good and better than every team.
Along with Nigeria, Canada also plays Ireland and co-host Australia in the group stage, the first steps in their quest to become World Cup champions. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Melbourne.
Coming up after the break. Big controversy over a country song about small towns, plus the intersection of an incredible close call. Country music star Jason Aldean is speaking out after he received backlash for a music video that includes clips of clashes between protesters and police in Montreal and Toronto. CTV's Vanessa Lee on the tune, sparking a torrent of reaction.
We'll try that in a small town.
Jason Aldean says Try That in a Small Town is about the feeling of a community he had growing up. But critics have blasted it, saying the lyrics promote violence and racism. In the video, images are projected on a building showing scenes of looting and protesters confronting police, including footage from Montreal and Toronto.
We're here in Columbia, Tennessee, in front of the courthouse on the square.
It was filmed in front of the Maury County Courthouse in Tennessee, where an 18-year-old black man was lynched by a white mob in 1927.
There's absolutely no way that this location was chosen by accident. This is a specific site that was known and was a message for other white supremacists. It's a specific message that says, I know where the lynchings happen.
Aldean is firing back, saying there is not a single lyric in the song that references race or points to it. Adding, while I can try and respect others to have their own interpretation of a song, this one goes too far.
I am shocked by what I'm seeing in this country, with people attempting to cancel this song and cancel Jason and his beliefs.
Lord, beliefs singer Sheryl Crow, who is from a small town, slammed Aldean for, tweeting, "There is nothing small town or American about promoting violence. You should know that better than anyone, having survived a mass shooting." Aldean was on stage during the Las Vegas concert in 2017 that killed 60 people and wounded more than 400. Despite country music television pulling the video, Try That in a Small Town is #1 on the iTunes chart. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
Incredible video out of Argentina tonight where a pedestrian somehow evaded a terrifying crash. She was crossing a street when 2 cars collided and narrowly missed hitting her. One of the vehicles smashed into a bus. Amazingly, no one was seriously injured. Still ahead, one couple's unique adventure lifts off from New Brunswick. Police in Germany are on the hunt for a potentially dangerous animal that is causing an uproar on the outskirts of Berlin. This video shows what appears to be a lioness on the loose, prompting warnings to stay indoors as authorities search for the big cat. Off the coast of this country, search and rescue crews assisted in a daring medical evacuation from a cruise ship. Through thick fog, members of the Royal Canadian Air Force were able to lower personnel to the ship's main deck, stabilize the patient, then hoisted them up to a helicopter before heading to a hospital in St. John's. It was up, and away for a British couple who departed Canada on a tale of two Sussexes.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, brother.
Mike and Deborah Scholes boarded a helium balloon and lifted off from Sussex, New Brunswick, bound for their home in Sussex, UK. Guinness World Records is tracking the Scholes' transatlantic adventure to determine if Deborah is the first woman to captain a balloon across the ocean and if Mike is the first registered blind person to crew one. After the break.
Why would I want to buy a house that looks like that for $1.8 million?
The controversial home with a view at Peggy's Cove. In real estate, they say it's all about location, and there is no question Canada's East Coast is one of the most stunning spots in the country. Also stunning for many is the price someone has paid for a home there that barely looks habitable, leaving some wondering what the new neighbor has in store. Here's CTV's Atlantic Bureau Chief Chris Najkate.
Just steps away from the iconic lighthouse at Peggy's Cove sits this $1.8 million property. With a stunning view of St. Margaret's Bay, it has become the talk of the town among tourists, with many mixed reviews.
I can see the appeal, but that's a lot of money.
Why would I want to buy a house that looks like that for $1.8 million? Ridiculous.
The double lot is more than 1,700 square feet and includes 40 meters of shoreline. But the house and garage are selling as is, where is, and need a lot of work, both outside and inside this 3-bedroom, 1-bath home.
When I win that $70 million this weekend, I'd be willing to invest that money into this place.
Probably a newer, nicer, modern cottage.
Probably like an A-frame with a lot of windows.
Yeah.
It is considered residential, but could be rezoned to a commercial property.
Take advantage of the 1 million tourists that come through here every year. Get that $1 million back in the first year, absolutely.
The average price of a home in Peggy's Cove can start at more than $600,000. Local residents say that they miss what their fishing community used to be and are disappointed to see the ongoing commercialization of the village. Still, visitors feel they wouldn't mind.
So many people traveling by foot, I think it would even qualify for a Starbucks.
Although the home has been conditionally sold, the realtor says other offers could be considered. For now, community members will wait and see on who their new neighbor will be.
Peggy's Cove is lovely, and you see the pictures, but actually being here, and especially with the mist rolling in, it's kind of magical.
Chris Najkate, CTV News, Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia.
Such a gorgeous part of the country. And that's a snapshot of this Thursday. John Valley Rao will be here tomorrow for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching, and good night.